I'm here in Viareggio. It was getting way too hot in Florence these days, so we decided to spend some time by the beach. It's a beautiful coastline here. I like to do this before I paint so that the paint can slide nicely. This is a little bit of linseed oil and a little bit of mineral spirit so it evaporates fast. I'll do a little drawing first, proportion, perspectives, planning my big placements. Obviously the horizon, I want to have it horizontal. I'm going to put it up here. I want to start with the furthest point, which is the sky and the mountains over there. And I'm painting it with kind of elongated brush strokes to give the sense of distance. So I'm interpreting the energy and the spirit of the elements with the brush stroke. From here, I want to give the sense of the overwhelming man-made area here, way bigger from my perspective than the ocean, which is thinner back there. And it's funny too that such a big area can be captured in a small canvas. I did this on purpose just to play around with the idea. Everything can be smaller and smaller, and the more scientists develop tools to see smaller things, things get smaller to get away from the measurement. From my point of view, it's like a one-point perspective, all going that way. But then they suddenly stop with that mass of buildings there. The sand is looking lighter than the sky because it's catching all that sunlight. And then the sand becomes umbrellas, and the values is pretty close to each other there because the sand is very light, the umbrellas are kind of light too in general. And as things get further, I go smaller, also with the brush stroke, just to grasp what I'm actually observing. The roads here, closer to me, they're a great moment to show the flatness of the surface because roads, they go and they imitate the contour of the landscape. And they're really reflective, they're light, it's concrete. And I want to put that feeling of heat, of bouncing light from them. All these planters in the middle of the road are really cool. It's green, but it's really light too, because it's part of this whole ground. So this whole ground is catching light. So that light is dominating every subtlety within it. If we focus, we see the varieties, and we know that there are shadows in there and dark greens, but as a whole, it's just a whole ground. I'm using a Rosemary Merry Christmas brush. This was a gift from Rosemary in 2017, and I never used it because it's kind of small. You know how I like to hold my brushes really far away, but I think it's appropriate for the occasion. That's why you gotta look in the brushes. The brush is useful if it represents what you're gonna paint. Thank you, Rosemary. Merry Christmas. I think it's time for the dark ocean. The ocean is darker because it's deeper. As the water goes into the depth, it creates its own shadow, so it becomes darker blue as it goes away from the light. I left a little space here to put the ultramarine blue. The horizon is an imaginary effect. It's not a line because you're gonna make a line out of all that mass of water. So it has to stay soft even if it's kind of sharp compared to the whole scene. It's a division there. If I think of the ground going away, going down, and then on top of this there is a mass of water and then the mass of sky, the light that is coming from the sun is kind of scattered in a similar way. The shorter particles, the shorter wavelengths are the blues, and those are the ones that we see. The other ones are absorbed. Very foggy mountains back there, very beautiful. Because mountains are very powerful. To see them become air is pretty beautiful. Even though this is looking abstract, I'm actually looking at the movement of even those palm trees there. They move with the feeling of the palm trees, with the air, so they represent them. I'm using brown mainly if I need to mute any color, because brown is a color that happens when there is no reflection. From this distance, everything is so reflective that the brown gets lost. It has to be on darker objects. And that's why, because they're absorbing the light, like the dirt or even the trunks of the trees. I'm keeping them light and chromatic, just to give the effect of light floating around everywhere from here. The plants are the darkest objects I have here. They're looking green because they are absorbing, pretty much eating, the red waves all the way to the shorter waves, the violet waves. And it happens to be that those cluster of plants are in front of the roof, a warmer tone, so I can get those reds next to the greens by the plants, which is also dark, so it works really nice for the design of this scene. The umbrellas are all these little things pointing up, pointing towards the heaven. And they grow from the ground almost like if they were trees to give us shade. So I'm copying that with my brush strokes. I'm trying to project forward that feeling of pointing upwards with the brush and the paint. I won't paint the people and the activity happening because from the evidence, it shows that there's a lot of human activity anyways. Plus, I can get to keep the sense that I'm taking all this scene here by myself. So I'm ignoring the rest. The blue waves are the one reflecting, and that's the ones we see. They also are transparent when they are near us, when there is a little amount. Like for instance, a cup of water is transparent, it's not blue. So also air. The sky is not something that is far away back there. The sky is starting from here, that accumulates, and then we see the same effect. The sky and the ocean, I want them a little bit smoother, just to give that contrast between the textures of the soft versus all the texture on the ground. I learned from Alan Watts the idea that we cannot see our own heads. We are projecting forward with our eyes and with our senses. All this vibration becomes our head. I love that idea for painting, because painting means that we have it inside of us, because we are looking at things. We might separate ourselves from these objects and this space. At the end, everything is happening inside our brains, our minds. When I approach a scene or when I think of something, I have to accept that that's something within me. Otherwise, it will be overwhelming if I start dividing all this into single pieces of objects.